Hello, this is Fiona, one of the co-hosts of the DM's Book Club, a weekly book club podcast where we read about some Dungeons & Dragons and discuss how we might include them in our role-playing campaigns. For this episode, we were joined by Greg, Tito, and Shelly Mazzanoble, the hosts of Dragon Talk, the official Dungeons & Dragons podcast. Each week, the D&D team sit down with celebrities and personalities from across gaming and pop culture to discuss one of the greatest fantasy brands of all time. They not only talk about the tabletop role-playing game, but the latest in D&D video games, comics, novels, movies, and television. It was truly a delight to have Greg and Shelly on to talk about their love of D&D and about their upcoming book, Welcome to Dragon Talk, inspiring conversations about Dungeons & Dragons and the people who love to play it. Welcome to Dragon Talk will be out in early December, but you can pre-order it from all good booksellers. You can find out more about Dragon Talk, the podcast, in this episode description. Thanks again, and I hope you enjoy.
See,
The blue one. Do the blue one.
Every time
it's different, right?
I don't know why I want to hit leave. And I have left Dragon Talk meetings.
And it took like 5 minutes to try to get her back.
I'm glad that it's not just me going, oh, I'm being overly cautious and very British about things, apologizing in advance. But good, great.
Oh, by the way, Greg and Shelly, we're going to say sorry about 150 times during this hour. Just by the way.
I appreciate you're on lunch, so if you need to take a drink at all, every time we say
drinking
sorry.
Game. Yeah.
I mean, it's past 5 o'clock here, so it's fine.
Yeah, so we'll have a drink afterwards. That's because we need to be professional
From home. Yeah.
Well, I will. Hamilton has to possibly.
I actually have to go back to work.
Oh yeah, that's true. But we'll start off really nice and simply, guys. Thank you so much for coming and coming on our show. In case people haven't heard of you guys, who are you and what do you do?
Do you want to go first, Shelly, or should I?
You go first.
All right. I am Greg Tito. I am the Senior Communication Manager for Dungeons & Dragons, but I'm also the co-host of Dragon Talk, a long-running podcast that is the official D&D podcast with my very favorite person, co-host, Shelly Mazzanoble.
Oh, see, that's why I wanted you to go first, because you had to do the harder part. I am Shelly Mazzanoble. I'm the Senior Brand Manager for Dungeons & Dragons, and along with Greg, co-host Dragon Talk, and along with Greg, co-authored a book called Welcome to Dragon Talk, which guess what, is about our podcast.
What? Oh, incredible.
Right.
Me and Hamilton were talking about it. We clocked that obviously it is like one of the most long-running podcasts, certainly about D&D, obviously the official D&D podcast. We hadn't realized it'd been going for so long. Like I started listening back in 2012, and at time of recording, you're almost like 400 episodes.
Yeah, 399, isn't it, right now?
Bonkers.
Yeah, that is impressive.
Yeah.
You weren't on it though all the way through. That's correct. That's what because I didn't listen all the way back then correctly. So I've only joined in the last 5 years or so I'm a noob. But
we had to do research when we were writing this book, trying to figure like, where did it start? How did it begin? Yeah. See, I remember I was on
a mystery.
I was a fan back in the 4th edition era of Dungeons & Dragons, and that's where I had first heard of Acquisitions Incorporated, and that was how this podcast feed started. It was actually James Wyatt playing as the DM to start, and then Chris Perkins took over on the second session. But that's where this feed all began, and then it has morphed and changed through that, which we go through in the book. It was really fun to delve into that history, some of which you were there for, Shelly.
Piecing it together. Yeah, I was kind of always there, but then not really. Like I guess people just kept dropping away, but I just kept sticking around.
Your pictures in the background, getting closer and closer to the camera. Yeah.
I mean, there were some dicey times in there. It was very funny to go back to the history because Bart Carroll was involved from the beginning, and it was kind of like he was like, I guess it would be kind of fun to have a podcast. Let's just see if I know how to do this. And he just like figured it out on his own, kind of begged and borrowed to get equipment to do it. And then just was like asking people if they wanted to be on it. And some people did and some people didn't. And we always had to like find a conference room to record in. And sometimes the conference room was double booked. And like people would walk in right in the middle.
Yeah.
Recording. We're like, can you see we're doing something in here?
Busy.
We've got microphones and stuff.
Yeah, come on, you guys.
People didn't know about Zoom calls though in 2012, did they really as much? I guess maybe.
I know we always had guests come in person.
Right.
I don't think we at that early time we had anyone calling in. So yeah, it was strange times in the beginning.
That was one of my questions that I was going to ask you. It's like, and you've led into it perfectly, was the sort of change from 2012 to 2022 in so many ways, not just the world. Let's keep it to D&D. But like, it's that sort of like technology's made such a big leap for D&D, particularly in the last 3 or 4 years because of everyone being forced home. But is there anything that you think that like has been critical to those sort of the changes of D&D and how you've seen that like over those 10 years? Is there like 2 or 3 things that you're like, these were like fundamental moments where it made a seismic shift over your period of doing this?
Like a milestone or something.
Milestones.
I mean, I think for me, it was, especially that 10-year period, was the advent of streaming and, video streaming in general, and especially Twitch. The idea that people were watching other people play games was relatively new, even back in 2012, right? There were a few Let's Plays on YouTube, and that was about it. And then once things grew to encompass video games, and then around 2015, when I started at Wizards, was actually the week that I started was the same week that Critical Role had their first show on
that's insane,
on Twitch, and that changed everything. I mean, that just let people watch people playing Dungeons and Dragons was such a great instructor that you didn't have to go to a physical location, you didn't have to go to a convention or a game store to watch people play. You could watch it in the comfort of your own home, and everybody understood and kind of demystified a lot of people who might want to play. Took that first leap to try and play because they were able to emulate some of their favorite stars doing that. So I think that was really the biggest shift. And then of course the pandemic accelerated everything else, right? Where more people were able to play through video conferencing than ever before.
And have a bit of time to do it as well. And maybe some time to watch some 3-hour episodes of Critical Role, maybe.
Less so now.
I mean, I'd already caught up, but I mean, I was just like, I just think that for me, it was a very useful time for catching up on podcasts, for sure.
What about yourself, Shelly?
I would say 5th edition for sure, because just of how many people that brought into the community and got people playing. And along with what Greg was saying, how many more creators came into the fold, that there was just people who are doing everything from their streaming to writing their own adventure product to creating candles that are inspired by D&D locations. I mean, there's people everywhere that are doing such cool stuff in this community that's inspired by Dungeons and Dragons. But I will also give credit to Greg Tito, because
who's that? Yeah.
He's this guy I know that sat next to me at work when he was just like a shy, young, new PR guy. But we actually did know each other before he even started. But it was really Greg who kind of got Dragon Talk to become drag. First of all, it didn't have a name. And Greg was like, we should name this podcast. and also, I mean, as podcasters yourself, you might
and talk, Dragon Talk.
it's kind of helpful to have a name for your podcast.
Yeah.
Also helpful if like you actually have a release cadence. And Greg was kind of like, we should probably like structure this more and make it sound better and like put some actual resources behind it. So like Greg really was the one that got us on the path to where we are now. But and maybe that's why the other hosts fell to the wayside. They were like, oh no, I don't want to be so professional. And once again, I just like stayed in the room and I'll do it.
Shelly, you're coming forward, and behind you is also Greg. Then together you are at the front of the image.
It was pretty much that. So
there was a few of those early episodes where there was, I think, 4 hosts with only 1 guest, and we're like, this feels so a little weird. Like the view. Wow. This is not necessary.
Wait, isn't that kind of what we got right now?
Shush, how
we're like evenly matched.
Yeah.
Yes,
no, absolutely. I'm joking.
I'll go on to my question then, because obviously it has been mostly podcast form with Dragon Talk, but I know obviously you've done some streams of the Dragon Talk episodes as well. For me as well, I guess maybe it's the way that D&D is, but at the same time as obviously the sort of the rise of podcasting going up as well. Do you think, I guess maybe it's a more biased question because we're all on podcasts, but when we're talking about D&D or playing D&D, do you think podcasts have an edge over actual plays? Because obviously Critical Role was a stream for a long, long time, and then eventually had an audio that went along with it because there was a demand for it. But I think for me, like when I'm listening to like discussions of podcasts or actual plays, I tend to go for a podcast over visual. I don't know if you had a view on that. at all.
I think there is, it's a different medium, right? So I think the idea of radio or audio-based content is a little bit more akin to what you do when you actually play Dungeons and Dragons, right? Where you're listening to the voice of your dungeon master and trying to interpret what they're describing and then creating a visual in your head. And so I think podcasts do have a leg up a little bit in using the cues that are similar to the way you play. Now that said, I think there is it's different for different people. There are people who like to consume stuff through audio only, whether it's they're commuters or they just like being able to be able to do that while they're doing something else physically. You can't do that as much when you're watching. You have a screen that you're looking at and you're kind of fixed in that position. But I do also think that the visuals that people have added to streams are, blowing me out of the water. The amount of energy and artistry that's necessary for creating those miniature displays and really immersive stuff. You get the performances from the I guess they are actors, right? I was going to say players. They are so much more expressive in the visual medium that you can't necessarily always get from just listening to the audio itself. And there's also the idea of whether it's live or edited.
Right. Yeah.
A lot of the audio podcasts take a lot of care. The ones that I really enjoy are the ones that add sound effects and things like Foley effects so that it actually feels a little bit more immersive in that way. Whereas the streaming is more about trying to make it feel like you're watching a theater performance of people getting around together and playing. And that adds a whole other different vibe and energy to the sessions, I think. So, I mean, I like both, but I think audio is maybe a little bit of a leg up in my personal brain.
It's an easier to consume, isn't it? That's the fundamental of it, isn't it? It's just it's so much more accessible. But as someone who does streams and now is doing more edited content that's visual, it is a lot more work as well. They're both a lot of work, but it's you can have a lot of fun in both mediums as well, which is kind of the thing about it, isn't it? They have fun in their own ways because with the visual, you can, as you said, you can get all dressed up and you can and you can make some beautiful sort of graphics and effects and add lightning and stuff. But then additionally with the audio, you can really delve into soundscapes and some really exciting things. So because we're talking about mediums, so you've now moved from a podcast into a book, so you've changed medium again. And kind of interesting to see how that process sort of changed your perceptions potentially of the content you're talking about, because you've kind of gone, and I imagine, I assume obviously you've re-listened to all of the shows or a lot of them, and then now trying to translate that into a written word. Did it affect the way you saw those things? Did you gain new insights from them? Does it what sort of things have you learned through that process? So
I don't know if you've heard me say this before on Dragon Talk, but I have a really hard time listening to myself.
We did wonder that.
Me too.
I do not. I am not new episode, I'm going to download myself right now and listen. And to go back to your previous question, I love podcasts. I listen to podcasts all day, every day, because I walk a lot. I just have my headphones on when I'm just doing laundry, whatever. I love podcasts, but it was very hard. That was the hardest part, was having to go back and re-listen. But I will say I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I also found myself making the same jokes in my head that I did actually on
amazing
the episode. I'm like, oh, yep, I said that. Yeah.
I got me.
I haven't evolved in 8 years at all. But it really was a good experience. And let's be honest, I think if you want to be good at what you do, you should actually revisit your work and see be mindful of where you can make improvements. And I know that there's tons to still learn about how we can make Dragon Talk, better than ever. But I did learn things that way. I don't like the way I begin questions. A lot of times I don't have the question formed in my head before my mouth opens, and it's okay, I'm going to ask it this way. Nope, I'm going to backtrack, and now I'm going to ask it the way I'm going to do it. That part. I was like, God, I bet people don't like me.
I think it's a very natural thing as we're both there going, so this next question we've got.
Yeah, it's above and beyond the ums and ohs. But I did, obviously when we were writing this, we couldn't write about every single interview. So we had to think about the ones that they all move us in some way, but in like ones that like have really like bubbled up. So going back to listen to those, I could see, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember why this one affected me the way that it did. And it was really cool to see, because Greg and I, there weren't really a lot of overlaps with like, we were both like, no, I want to write about that interview. Like this one meant something. We really did kind of come up with our own lists. We always joke and like we each have a type, you know. Like I get really excited when it's somebody talking about like how they've used D&D to help kids, you know. Like I think we both really do love to talk to therapists and people who have used D&D in the mental health space. We both really like those. Yeah. But it was really interesting to see like Greg's choices and reading about, like I didn't realize a lot of times that he was so moved or affected by something, because like it wasn't like we don't really like download after the interview. It's like back to work. And then we'll chop, we're back to work. But I was like, wow, like I didn't realize that this person had said something that brought Greg back to like something, a pivotal moment in his childhood. And so it was really cool to just
connect.
Yeah. And like it's very telling of this D&D community that we're so lucky to be a part of, because there are so many special people that find their way into this hobby. And like the more people are different, the more we are kind of all the same too. It's because there are so many of those connection points. And I truly hope that is what people also take away from the podcast when they listen to it. It's like they're also finding those ways to connect with other people in the community and feel like, like we know we're different, but the same.
Well, I'm going to give you some praise now, so you're going to have to handle it. But here you go. You ready for this? But I think you guys do. When I was listening to your podcast, like as I mentioned about you, Greg, you're talking about your daughter, and then yourself, Shelly, and all the stuff you've done with the self-help to elf-help stuff that you worked on. I think you do come across in it as very engaging and connecting with the people that you're talking to. It's really lovely to hear, because it's very much like you turn up with people that I don't know your relationship to them before, but it very much feels like, oh, you know these people really well, and you ingratiate with them in a really nice way, and it's really nice to listen to. It's a really it's very comforting to listen to, if you know what I mean. So
that's
and
lovely.
to jump off that as well, I think, like you said, over the last 10 years, obviously this sort of reveal from like it was a geeky thing with usually guys in basements, right, to be like, hang on, film stars do it, famous American football players do it, like these people who voice your favorite games, they also do it. And it's just that sort of thing where they feel so far away because you're like, it's a different world, but then you're like, so what's your favorite class? And they're like, bard or something like that. You're like, and you're instantly on that level.
They're just like me.
It's so true. It levels the playing field.
You instantly have that connection. Like I've definitely been at parties where I'm sat there going, I don't have anything to talk about. They're all talking about things. And there's someone like, do you do a D&D podcast? And I'm like, have you played? And they go, oh, I've been thinking about it. And then I'm like, well, I've got them for the rest of the evening now. And we have a great, and in a nice way, not like I've trapped them in a corner. They're the ones who asked me. I have to.
You're the meme, right?
I think it is that connection. Like you said, that it's just like, no matter who you are, you can connect to someone, even if like, what's the word, like, first impressions aren't necessarily the best ones of that, and the way people look as well. It's just interesting now that everyone does have this geeky side. It's not a bad thing anymore. So.
No,
it's true.
No,
yeah, I love that, Fiona. I think I'm that type of person at parties too, where I will like, oh, you have one thing that I'm in common with, and I can engage with. Yeah. Let's talk for the rest of the time while I don't have to do the weird small talk that most shit is about.
Yes.
It's like, oh, now we can be like, all right, yes, let's talk about why bards are the best class.
Yeah, exactly.
He's starting with the big talk.
I know. Well, we'll go on to, that's a different podcast episode. We don't have time to talk about that.
We'll have to do that. Greg, we'll have to have another conversation about this. I'm sorry.
I mean, we're all bards at heart.
I mean, I do love bards. But actually, then, let's go with that. I did have that as like my get out of jail free card question was like, what's your favorite class? So go on then. So what's Shelly? What's yours then?
So I am like very into the magic users.
Yeah.
So I really like sorcerers, maybe because that was my very first D&D character. This is her mini. This is Astrid.
What?
And I will save her forever. And I just like the little bit of chaos in there. Like I love wild magic. I'm just gonna like, I don't know what's gonna happen. It's so cool. Like I'm just like, please let me roll on the table, please. And I never get to. But so I do love sorcerers, but lately I've gotten really into warlocks. I'm like, where have you been my whole life? Because
gone edgy.
yeah, I'm like that to me. I love the idea of I may have done something a little unsavory, but I did it for a good reason.
You just have to justify everyone else.
Yeah, I just did it for the evil spirit that gives me power. There's nothing wrong with that.
You don't know why. You don't know why.
You don't know me.
He's not evil to me.
You don't know. It's between me and my patron. So
don't judge me. Don't hate the player. Hate the game.
I'm loving the vibe. People at home who can't see this, there's a vibe going on here. It's great. It's amazing.
What about you, Greg?
I mean, I probably would pick the bard. Yeah, I love the fact that they are performers at heart and they can use their magic for that. I just love the idea of there being a theater person as a class, as an adventuring class.
Pretty much, right?
Yeah, it makes me laugh. Plus, they have some of the best spells in the game. I think being able to make fun of people so badly that they had take psychic damage, I think is really amazing.
Well, that's all we ever want to be, is that cool person that does that.
Because we've all been there, though, to be honest.
Yeah, you're just like, snap. Oh, you feel bad about yourself now. You're gonna quit the fight because
you're gonna feel so bad that you're just gonna keel over and go unconscious.
Go home.
It's Monkey Island.
It's Monkey Island. It's so fun. Yeah, so I probably would pick that, but I play bards a lot, but I don't necessarily always go into them. I mean, I like something about the elf ranger archetype I really like as well too. But that's just my Aragorn love popping up.
That's I won't go into mine because I'll just go on a rant
it's
about
a rogue.
rogues for about a rogue for about 15 hours.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we had a whole episode on it.
I do love all classes, but I just
rogues are fun.
Rogues are good.
Yeah, fun.
They're so much fun.
When we've done other episodes doing other classes, Hamilton's like, it's good, but it's not a rogue. Yeah.
I feel like that with magic users too.
I feel like we know so much more about you now, Hamilton.
Yeah, I've tried other classes. I'm like, it's fun. I can see why people like it, but it's just not for me. But I'm curious about Fiona. Can I guess?
Yeah, come on.
Yeah, have a guess. Go on, Shelly.
Are you a paladin?
That was my first character. But I it's because I arrived late to the party. May have had.
That was the only one left.
It was the only one left. It was from the Lost Mines of Fandelver, and it was one of the pre-gens, but it was the Halfling Paladin. And the joke, I appreciate, you can't see because we're not in the same room. I'm actually nearly 6 foot. I'm a little bit taller than Hamilton. So they're like, this will be funny. You can be a Halfling Paladin. And I was like, okay. But that was, but that obviously got me into playing and then DMing and all that sort of thing. But my go-to class, which Hamilton knows, is a barbarian. And we're just coming up to our finale of a nearly 5-year campaign where we're all 20th level, and we're going to do it in person. We'd obviously done it online during the pandemic, and so Halloween we're all going to dress up, we're all going to do the bits, and we're all low-key excited, even though we're all like 30-year-olds going, let's not get too excited, guys. We're like, no, it's so important to us.
That
right?
ship has sailed.
Yeah, you are in. That is great.
Yes.
Yeah. What is it about the barbarian that you like?
I think it's just because I can be me without the filter at work. That's all.
That's valid.
I don't know. It's interesting, but just to go to that point as well, like going back to like getting people in and connecting to them. So when we first started that campaign, both of our players, like we had a person who'd never played before, and one person here was like, I'm not so sure about this, and that person now draws all of our character art. He's written his own stuff, and because at first he was like, is this a bit nerdy? But then he was like in straight away. And like for a birthday, I had a portrait. He's done big character art, almost like a Marvel film poster. And so that's what I like about. Cool. But that's it, right? I like how this game, you can talk to someone and they can be like, I really enjoy it. But then some people are like, I can create candles, I can create posters, I can create art for me and my friends. And it's just that connection you can have with someone, which is so different to a board game or immersive like theatre experience. It's just not in the same way because it's just so unique. So it
inspires. It really does. It inspires people to create all types of stuff, like backstory. You mentioned, like, I mean, there are people who are like, oh, I'll write 20 pages of backstory. I'm like,
I know.
If you had gotten like a 20-page assignment, from class or something like that, you'd be like, oh, I can't do it. But like, people are just motivated to jump in and like, mix with words if they're that way, or the drawing stuff. Like I love playing with artists around the table because they're just doodling and making things.
Constantly doodling.
Like, here's the scene of what just happened, a half hour ago. And I'm like, you just did that? That's amazing. I love it.
Yeah, my friend does that. He will put it up as his virtual background, and it'll be always something that is something embarrassing that we've done. He's just done a quick doodle, and he'll be like,
that's even better. I love it.
But then obviously at the end of the call, we have to like make sure you turn your virtual backgrounds off, because in the meeting at 9 a.m. you turn up with
barbarian, like,
and your display name is like Buffy McVampire Store or something. You're like,
Oh, actually, yes. What is my display? Oh no.
Yeah, you're right. Don't worry, Shelly. We would have told you. I guess obviously I know it's going to be very hard to pick. So obviously, as you said, you went back for the interviews and you picked like a list of your favorite ones. But what was sort of your individual highlights from the book? Is there a particular interview that stands out, or are they all so good you can't pick?
I'm looking at the table of contents right now.
Too.
So I'm like, oh yeah, right.
Gotta double check, right?
Yeah. I honestly really loved the Rainn Wilson essay that we did. It was one of the first ones I did when we were kind of pitching this book, and it's one of our earlier interviews in like 2015 or 2016 really early on, or so. And so Shelly and I are a little bit, kind of newish to it still. I think it was still called the official Dungeons and Dragons podcast. It wasn't called Dragon Talk quite yet. And we only had them for a half hour, so most of our interviews are an hour long. But it was like, okay, we got to do this. And I love my self-deprecating kind of feeling is like, I don't think he was just doing this as a lark to promote his own book at the time. He's like, I just thought it would be funny to tell people that I was on the D&D podcast to promote this book. But it does capture that idea of like people from all walks of life have come into this game. They might love it when they're kids and then bounce off it and come back to it later. And everybody still has these strong memories about it. And so the stories he told, some of which he included in his book, but which I included in the essay, is all about like just these visceral experiences he had when he was like 13 playing D&D in the Pacific Northwest where we are here in Seattle. And so it's just this really, I don't know, it's one of the funniest kind of quick essays in this book. I don't know. What do you think, Shelly? What was one of yours that was your favorite?
I really like the Ethan Schoonover one. He is a teacher. He was a teacher at the all girls middle school.
Yes, I followed his Twitter.
Seattle. And I just love the story of how that came to be. And like just one of the girls approaching him and like, have you seen Stranger Things? And he's like, yeah, I've seen Stranger Things. What's happening? Like, and how it's just an all girls middle school, which like middle school is terrible. It's just the worst. But like these girls are just they're thriving in it. They're playing together. The club grew from like 4 girls to like a third of the school ended up joining the club. It's not a huge school, but still. And like other parents like pulling Ethan off to the side, like, hey, can you get my daughter in? Like, she really wants to play.
It's the cool kids club.
Yeah. And then like how some of the girls ended up becoming dungeon masters, and then they went off to start clubs at their high school. And he told us a story about how they were like very pensively talking about, like high school. Wow, like there's gonna end up being boys that want to play D&D with us. What are we gonna do? And like the younger girls were like, you just gotta let them join too. D&D should be for everyone.
For boys too.
It's for boys too.
I have to give you some kudos, Shelly. That is one of my favorite essays of yours too, because you go into your own experiences during middle school.
Yeah, my own psychoses.
It's so great the way you describe it and how different it is from these girls' experience. It's fantastic.
But it could have been. It's like, wow, if we had, there probably was D&D in my middle school and I probably didn't notice or made fun of it or whatever. But if somebody had shown me the way back then, it could have been so much better, I think.
It might have been, but then you wouldn't be on Dragon Talk talking to Greg. You might have been on something else, like the Shelly show or something like that. But
and that would be awful.
Yes.
Oh God.
The Shelly show.
The Shelly variety show. That would be terrible.
I see a spin-off.
Right. But I totally agree, because I came to it quite late as well, like in the last 6 years. But then in that first year, I was like, well, I'm going straight into dungeon mastering and then playing other RPGs as well. But like, I thought there wasn't anything at my primary school or sort of middle school either. I'm sure there was. I think we had like Warhammer and stuff, but that was like boys and dice, and that was it. And you were like, well, I think the most I got was like, do you want to paint a mini? And I was like, what is this? Like, no thanks. But obviously that's all those sort of biases, all those assumptions as well. And I thought, God, if it happened earlier, and now we've got such a great environment where people are playing it in the open, in quotation marks, but like it's accessible, like you said, you've got streaming, we've got podcasts, it's all around us, and it's not a bad thing. It's like, here's a different way to connect with other people. And I think people are so lucky to grow up with that support now, and it's just amazing.
And that's been the premise of Dragon Talk, since I joined, which was basically just like, look, everybody can play this. It doesn't, like, these are, like, we mentioned this a bunch of times already, but like the fact that you don't have to be a specific stereotype to enjoy everybody, and it's actually the diversity of everybody's different point of views and skill sets and talents and personalities. That's what makes it more fun, right? And so 100%. It's good to have people coming new into it who've not experienced it before, because they add so much new strangeness to it. Like when kids enter it, they don't have the preconceived things of all of the archetypes, and so they come up with the wildest, more fun stuff, and you're like, how can we weave this into a story and not lose that element of play that I think is also a great boon, right? Having that throughout adulthood, instead of it being like smashed out of you when you got to work each day. Like to have this game to fall back on and be like, we can have fun.
It's true, because so I do improv as well on the side. I appreciate, like, back to me, but it's interesting. Like, you get, when you ask for suggestions, sometimes they are quite adult suggestions, or they're like humorous to an adult audience. I recently went to like a big marathon of improv shows, and they had a family-friendly afternoon. And we had some of the best suggestions I've ever heard. They were like, dinosaurs, princesses, aeroplanes. And the improv troops were like, right, okay. And it was such a joy, because they don't care. The kids are like, we want to see a show about marine mammals now. And they're like, we can do that. And so, so you just get that different experience and different thing, which we wouldn't think of, because like you said, we've been conditioned in a way to be like, well, we're adults now, we need to think of these things.
Is that right? Because I haven't
I don't know, maybe it's just me, Hamilton.
You're supposed to. Lucky for you. But it really does serve so many needs for adults, like not just the play, because it's still important to play as an adult, but it also it's that social connection that we need 100%. As well. And like taking time for yourself and making time for your friends or whatever. There's, people do book clubs, people do Stitch and Bitches, people will, have poker night. Like, this shouldn't really be any different. So it does fulfill a lot, like the creative outlet, which a lot of people as adults feel like they have to put aside. Like, I have a day job, I have a family, I have kids. I guess I don't get to tinker with this novel anymore that's been, sitting there for 2 decades. But this can certainly help fulfill just that creativity and keep you inspired. So.
No, it's amazing. I think the community is the thing that I've loved about it, because I played 2E with some friends who were into it a lot more. We were more Warhammer kids, because I think in England, I guess maybe Warhammer was a bit bigger in the 90s. But like, there's I don't know any coincidence, but they were American, and they'd moved over, and they brought sort of D&D to our group of friends, and so we played the 2E in Planescape, and that's sort of my, like, that's where I always will sit and love. And I'm so jealous you've spoken to Dieter Ritzley, because he's like my most favorite like artist. He like commented on one of my arts that I copied of his once, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to fall over.
Oh, he's fantastic.
He's such a nice person.
And what's also quite nice is that, because I didn't know anything about Planescape until Hamilton introduced it to me, and we were talking about Planescape stuff, and Hamilton was like, they're going to announce it soon. I'm like, don't hold out your hopes. And then we were watching it.
Just for you.
The announcement, and then it comes up, and Hamilton was like, it was. And I felt that joy, right? I was glad to be a part of that call when it happened.
The thing is that when I was a kid, it was exactly like, I just then became a teenager and was like, I've said this another time before, I want to smoke cigarettes and drink alcohol and be cool and stuff like that, and I don't know why, I just left it. But then coming back to it, I moved cities and I found like a gaming group, and then suddenly it became to D&D, and it was like through this whole community, it's just like meeting all these amazing people and making all these amazing friends and stuff. It's just it's actually it is impressive. And I think that seems like what you're talking about. Your book is really focusing on a lot about how, if you've mentioned community, about in the title, it's inspiring conversation about D&D and the people who play it. And I think it seems to be fundamental to it, right? It's that aspect. It's people, isn't it? At the end of the day,
yes.
Really.
Yes, the people you play with, right? And so many of them speak to people who came to this game not on purpose, right? Like they're like, right. Oh, I fell into it, or I got invited to this game and it changed my life in these very specific ways. Exactly. And they're very different, right? And so almost all of these essays come to figure out different, those different stories, and then how we related to them, and brought it all together. And it feels like the entire premise of it is just like, yes, come and be a part of this amazing experience that you can't really even describe. I mean, even in the first few chapters of this book, we're trying to answer the question of like, what is D&D? Like, what? How do you explain it to someone who has no context of it? Yeah, and it's hard to do, right? Yeah. You can't just be like, it's this, And so we really spend a lot of time trying to figure out that, and it's so fascinating because everybody's got a different way to tell that, right? Everyone's got a different way that they got into it, and it felt enriching to them in various ways. And so, this is a celebration of that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Do you think then, on that note, that the old-fashioned term of like the three pillars of D&D, which was, I think, role-playing, exploration, and combat, do you think that that's changed now? There's a different line in that?
On another column, perhaps?
The fifth column. No, I think, I think those are the pillars of trying to understand genre. You know how sometimes you can have long conversation of is something fantasy, is something sci-fi, and it helps to have a map to discuss something like D&D.
Concept, key core concept.
Right. Yeah. And so I think of those three pillars not as distinct, things, but just as another way to describe how you play D&D. There's this mode that can encompass other parts of it, but this is the exploration mode, this is the social mode, this is the combat mode, and any various session can have different parts of those. And it's just to me, it's just a way to describe what's going on. Yeah. And I don't think those have changed much, to be honest.
I think the emphasis on some of those has changed, because when I first started playing D&D, it was, and I guess it depends on the edition too, but and the people you play with, it was like combat, kill it. Just everything was like, we didn't talk to anybody. We just broke down doors and killed things. And that's what so I would have thought combat is the most important thing here. And then maybe exploration and then role play. Yeah. But I do think with the actual plays and the streams and seeing people, be more theatrical, and there's so much more role playing and cosplaying out there that I feel a shift even in the groups that I play with. That we spend entire sessions just looking around and shopping and talking to we have spent we're playing in a Spelljammer campaign right now, and we can spend at least 2 sessions just exploring the Rock of Brawl and just going into the various shops and meeting people there. So I think I feel like there's been a shift that people are becoming more interested in the story and the role playing and the interaction with other characters. And then you get books like The Wild Beyond the Witchlight, which actually you can actually run the entire adventure without engaging in combat, which I think is a very interesting challenge.
That was going to be exactly the point I was going to make, is that it feels like Wizards obviously are moving in that direction with, they've got different, it feels like Dragonlance. I don't know it yet, obviously, because it's not out, but it seems like that's going down the combat route heavy, but I don't know, but it feels like there has been a big shift to open up books more towards those different opening up strands more in those spaces, in the more role-playing ones or the more exploration ways. Spelljammer just feels just
off you go.
You just want to explore.
And here's some amazing creatures and spaces and places that you can just go and exist in and meet people in. Whilst The Wild Beyond the Witchlight is similarly exploration, but it's not so vast, but it's very much here are just people that are going to be really interesting. And here's a moment where you can be actors on a stage.
Staging one, Speaking of meeting people, obviously I know your book is full of your interviews of past. We were wondering, do you have like a wish list of people you've yet to interview, but you would love to have on Dragon Talk?
Totally do. I'd love to speak to Stephen Colbert. I think he's always been kind of top of the list for me because of his love of fantasy and I guess Lord of the Rings is one of his go-tos. He's played D&D with Matthew Mercer for Red Nose Day. I'd love to chat with him and find out more about his introduction to this game and how it is informed him.
He looks like he's always having fun on those Red Nose. The joy.
I know. Just the way he just looks at Matt Mercer like, oh.
Yeah, tell me everything.
Yeah,
I wish my players looked at me like that, but they don't. So.
Me too.
Get yourself a player who looks at you like
Colbert does to Matt Mercer.
So charming.
Exactly.
What about you, Shelly?
I think that's a good one. I'm totally blanking, but I'm trying to think of who's like our pie in the sky. Somebody.
We do have one other pie in the sky, which is Cory Booker. He's a New Jersey senator who has said he's played D&D and maybe even actively plays. So we've had Secretary of State Steve Hobbs from Washington State. He's our biggest politician, only politician, I guess. He
has made that distinction. Like when he actually like hardcore pitched himself to be on Dragon Talk.
Amazing.
And he was like, as far as I know, no other politicians have been on the show. So.
It sounds like he wants that claim to fame for when he runs.
Yeah.
He definitely has it.
I mean, you said he's in Washington State, so you've got Seattle. There's probably a lot of people you can get to vote. There's a lot of D&D people in that area.
And he pushes that, the gaming industry is huge in this area, so that's why we should support it. Also on top, he's a nerd and he loves playing D&D.
Yes,
That's secondary. He's like, oh no, nerdy. There's real political reasons for getting behind this, which is great. And your essay on him is all about that pitch too, Shelly. I love that in the book.
Yes, we even quoted parts of his email. It was so funny. Greg and I we were like, do we respond? Like, he's a senator.
Right?
Should we have legal read
Yeah, look at it quickly just in case. Yeah.
Oh, I so wonder. I'm looking forward to this in the book. I'm looking forward to that. That sounds great.
It's funny.
With that, then on that note, then if you haven't got one that you want to add to that, Shelly, is there someone dead or alive? Then I'll allow you to have this. Then, Shelly, is there anyone that you would want to either DM or play at your table?
Whoa,
Joan Crawford.
Yes, that would be amazing. Holy shit, yeah.
I'm not killing her character. I am like,
she'd kill you.
Oh my
I think.
God, another critical hit. I don't know how this keeps happening.
Just holding that wire hanger in front of you.
Oh my goodness.
I think, yes, it would be so fun. I love Joan Rivers, and I always, I mean, look, how fun would she be? I just feel like she would get it, and she would just make us laugh the entire time.
DM or player?
Oh gosh, I was imagining myself as her DM, but her as a DM.
I think that would be.
I think that would be great, but you might have to interrupt to roll dice at some point. That maybe.
I know. Oh my gosh, her descriptions of people would be amazing.
Be amazing. I'm if you can make that happen in some sort of magical way
in Planescape in the
sky
upper planes.
Lady of Pain,
Spoiler alert: Joan Rivers is the
Lady of Pain. What about yourself, Greg? Dead or alive? Anyone from history?
Interesting. I usually go to when I'm playing a bard that has the spell that is basically insulting people. I always go to Don Rickles one-liners to be able to spew them during there. So I would love to DM as him, and he's doing that with his cantrip attack every single time. Just eviscerating the goblin, be like, oh yeah, really? That's what you're wearing? That's ridiculous.
That would be good.
And they fall down.
Another great one. Oh, perfect. They're pretty good.
We went with comedians.
I know, right? Old school comedians.
Yeah.
Being aware of time as well, I'm afraid we're going to probably have to stop it there. But I know. But my final question, thank you. It's been absolutely wonderful to have you guys on as well. But my final question is, so where can we find you on social media? Where can we find Dragon Talk? And where can we get your book when it comes out?
Sweet. Well, I am at Greg Tito on Twitter, Greg_Tito on Instagram. I have a Star Trek rewatch podcast called Re-Engage. You can follow that on Re-Engage TNG. We're getting into season 4 now of Star Trek, so it's very exciting. A lot of fun stuff happening there. And then, of course, Welcome to Dragon Talk is available for pre-order now. You can get it from the University of Iowa Press on their website. You can, go to your local bookseller and try to order it from there. Give them some love. But if you can't get any of those, you can also pre-order on Amazon, and it'll be out on December 5th. But if you pre-order, we were told by our publishers that you might get it actually early.
Like
so
really
if you
early.
pre-order now, you might get it like a month or two before the actual publication date on December 5th. So get out there. Yeah, it's a lot of great stuff of us talking about what we've just been talking about.
Yeah, more of that. And I am Shelly Moo on Twitter and Instagram, and Dragon Talk you can find anywhere that you download your podcast.
Brilliant.
Like this fine podcast.
I'm sure Fiona will put it all in the show notes as well.
I'll put it all in the show notes, and I'll invoice you for that kind praise at the end of it as well.